in the Nature-Based Solutions Challenge. And today it's the turn for Arcadis to give us a workshop on nature-based solutions and resilience by Piet Dircke. And Piet Dircke is already among us. And yeah, welcome, Piet. And thank you so much for giving us this workshop. So I already told everybody more or less knows the 8 teams, right, that are in our Nature-Based Solutions Challenge. We started in May. We selected 8 teams that started working. They got funding immediately of 2,500 euros and mentors. Amongst others, there are mentors from Arcadis that is giving the workshop today. So we have 2 teams from the Netherlands, the Green Armor and the Green Dream team. Welcome. Then we have a team from Indonesia about organic mushrooms. Then team School Meets the Reef, Sri Lanka. An agroforestry team from Brazil. Wetlands team from Nepal. A bees team from Uganda. I've seen you already, welcome. And we have an agroforestry team from Congo called Mabele Agric. There will be some other guests. We also invited the jury, the task force of this challenge. So welcome to everybody that's present today. There's the last thing I want to say is a small announcement to all the teams. We will organize a workshop on pitching, vlogging and social media on the 16th of August from 3 to 4 p.m. European time, CEST. David will still send you the details and the invitation, so that will follow. So without further ado, I want to ask Mr. Piet Dircke to start the workshop. Or Marike, you will start first, right?
Yes,
thank you.
Actually, that will be me. Give me 1 second to share my screen. Okay, so first of all, thank you for this introduction. You're working on very interesting topics, and I'm really excited to be here together with Piet today. And I hope that everyone is ready, because we will also ask some questions and it will be quite interactive. So right away, I would start with the Mentimeter. So if everyone can go on the website that you can see on your screen, www.menti.com, and just enter the code 41657145. And it's a pretty simple question. And wait, I will also open the Mentimeter so everyone can see the answers. So it's about how you would define nature-based solutions, and there are no wrong answers. So the first thing that you think about, just enter it. Okay, we have some first answers that are coming up. Nature and center, indeed. Use the force of nature. If anyone has issues with entering the website, just let me know. The use of natural resources. Okay. I think already quite some people have answered. Continuing, we are 15. That means that actually quite some people still have to answer. Also important, that imitates nature to tackle societal challenges. We have mentions of biodiversity, quality of life. We like quality of life at Arcadis. Okay, I think almost everyone has filled it in. So we thought that it might be very interesting to actually see what last year was answered by the community of practice of resilient cities. So here you can see other kinds of answers.
So that was an internal Arcadis workshop.
Exactly. And they had the same question, and quite some different answers also came out of that.
But basically all around the same topic, I would say, of using the forces of nature instead of working against nature.
Exactly.
Biodiversity, social component in it, soil and water. So I would say I don't see very big difference here between this Arcadis community, which were like 50 relatively young specialists worldwide from Arcadis in the field of urban resiliency, and the student population here from Wageningen. I think the understanding of what we define nature-based solutions is comparable. So I would think that's okay.
Okay, so then I will introduce quickly the agenda of today. So we will go through this by defining the problem of climate change. Then we will introduce nature-based solutions as the solution to this problem. We will go through some case studies at Arcadis about a variety of projects, and you will be able to give your opinion on them. And then finally, there will be a discussion. Also, before giving the word to Piet, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. That's one of the options on Teams. And otherwise, you can also put your questions in the chat. And at the end of our workshop, there will be anyways a moment to discuss all together. So there will also be time for that. But now I will give the words to Piet. So we can dig in the nature-based solutions. Okay.
Yeah, so do we see my screen? So, climate change. And I hear. Okay.
That's not us.
That's somebody else. Okay. So we have defined the problem. I think there's almost no need for us to discuss the urgency of climate change with this group of experts. We all have seen the IPCC report with its dramatic recent conclusions, even proving more and giving more proof of the fact that there is already a climate change ongoing and that we really need to do something about it. And we also know that a lot of that climate change impact is in our big cities. Half of the world population lives in big cities now. And in the cities, the impact of climate change is gigantic. That can be either on the heat stress side, on water shortage, flooding, ecosystems impact, all other kinds of impacts. And at Arcadis, I'm the global director for climate adaptation. I, of course, often work in that urban environment, often near the waterfronts, along rivers or in coastal areas where the impact of sea level rise, of course, also plays an important role. So a lot of the examples that you will learn from me are from this practice that I'm active in, might be slightly different from your daily environment or your practical examples that you have from Wageningen, but that makes the discussion, I think, more interesting. And as you see, I have a wing pilot, Marieke. Wing pilot, I see is the number, I don't know how many, in a long row of Wageningen students working as my right hand.
Yeah.
Every half year, a new one is coming. We have Tabea here on the call, who was the previous one. Tabea, in fact, set up this nature-based solutions quiz that we're going through later together. So this is a fantastic role to be my right hand for 6 months. So whenever there's any one of you interested in that role, you can reach out either to Marieke or to Tabea and find more about that position.
Yeah.
But now the solution, we say not that nature-based solutions are the answer to everything, but it is one of the answers to the problems of climate change and one of the ways to deal with climate adaptation. And as a climate adaptation director, that is my specific focus, nature-based solutions for climate adaptation. And there's different ways to define, but I think the right-hand definition by the European community here is European Commission is a pretty good one. Saying that nature-based solutions are inspired, supported by nature, cost-effective, they provide environmental, social, and economic benefits, and they should help to build resilience, because as a result of adapting to climate change, we should become more climate resilient. And as already stated here, a lot of that effort from Arcadis projects goes to the urban environment, either near rivers or near the coastal environment. So what we mean with nature-based specifically, I think we are also all aware of that, it is about the forces of nature. How can we use the forces of nature, the functions of ecosystem, to provide a functionality or a service different from nature-derived solutions, as for instance windmills, or nature-inspired solutions, for instance organic shapes that you will find is very nature-inspired modern architects that you will find in their buildings. We're talking typically about that nature functionality, and usually in almost all cases that will be either something with sediment or with vegetation. There are here and there some other modifications, but in most cases, whether it's along the coast or river, or even when it's on a building, it will have something to do with vegetation and sediment, and often a combination of those two. And often the nature-based solution will be combined with other types of solutions, and this can include civil engineered solutions. And you will see several of the examples that I show where the presented project and the presented solution that Arcadis provided has both a nature-based component as well as a not nature-based or civil engineered component, and for obvious reasons, as I will explain later. Here in those three categories, you see. Okay, switch.
Yes.
We switch microphone. No, now to switch it on.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to switch microphones here now because Marike is going to play a part in our quiz that we play later. So basically in those three categories, cities, coasts and rivers, you see here a variety of nature-based solutions as we understand it. This is from a recent World Bank report. And typically in cities, blue-green infrastructure, building solutions, urban farming, all obvious types of solutions, I would say. Along the coasts, typically mangrove forests, a well-known example, or typical more sandy coast examples within the building with nature type of solutions as we find them in the Netherlands. And along rivers, wetlands, but of course also the Dutch room for the river concept, I think is a good example of a concept that has lots of nature-based solution elements in it.
Okay.
So, and finally, yeah, where do nature-based solutions contribute to? What do they result in? Well, I already mentioned, of course, the regulation of processes like climate change or reducing wave impact or the potential risk of a flooding. But there are also other ways how there could be benefits in terms of ecosystem services like provisioning, food forests, I think is a well-known example, fresh water. And we should not forget that a nature-based solution is not only good for the ecosystem, but also for the people that enjoy that solution for recreation or to become more quiet or to have leisure or whatever. So it's a lot of different types of benefits in these ecosystem solutions. So now we go to a couple of case studies. This is the core of our workshop. Most of the introduction, I think, is well known to you, but I frame it just to give you a bit more of the Arcadis perspective or my perspective, how I look at nature-based solutions within that climate adaptation context. So what you're supposed to do, I'm going to present quite a number of projects, like 24 or so, one slide each, one picture each. I will shortly introduce the project. And what you're supposed to do is to either agree or disagree with me that this is a nature-based solution. And you do that by going to the chat where Marike will type the different slide names. So yep. We start with the afsluitdijk. So the first in the chat you will find a Marike chat that says afsluitdijk. and you're supposed to give your thumbs up if you agree that this is nature-based, thumbs down or I disagree signal sign if you do not agree with it. There's no choice in between. It's either agree or disagree. So would say more than 50% nature-based or not. That is the opinion that you have to give. You have to vote pretty quick because we have very limited time. Marike will count how many votes we'll get. So whenever you know your answer, give it, even when I'm not even done. So when we find out that everybody already had an opinion before I finish my story, we can go to the next one. That's it. It's relatively simple. I can only give you limited information because we have limited time. So you have to choose also a little bit by intuition or because you already know more about the background of the project or because you like or dislike the picture that we show. That's all up to you. One thing is make your choice and please vote all because we need those votes, of course, to get a good sense for your opinion. Having said that, let's start with number one. As already mentioned, the Afsluitdijk, the Dutch closure dike, 30 kilometers closing of the IJssel Lake, has to be renovated, 75 years old. This is a very, very sustainable project. This has won multiple awards already for sustainability. It includes a very large fish migration river, and you see here the artist's impression. In reality, is a little less ecosystems based than it is shown here, but there is a fish migration river. There is a substantial reduction on the carbon footprint of the revetment of the dike that has to be replaced. These will be concrete blocks, but it will be a 65% reduction of the CO2 footprint. So that's a good progress. In addition to that, you see in the background sluices, gates, locks, they're all part of this renovation project. So that would be my story here. How's our score?
Quite mixed. It seems that not a lot of people are having the same opinion on whether it is nature-based or not.
How many votes do we have?
We only have 5 for now.
No, oh.
Actually, now the biggest part thinks it's not nature-based.
Okay, I see 4-1. I agree with that. There's some good sustainability elements here in this project, but the typical nature-based type of solutions with a concrete revetment, I think there's room for improvement here. There's also room here and improvement for some more votes, I would say. We are now 2-7. Okay.
There's many.
I think most of us agree that this is not the best example of a nature-based solution. Let's go on. Right behind that dike in the Lake IJssel, we find the Markerwadden. Markerwadden is a very large project of ecosystems restoration. There are new islands created here in this shallow lake with the dredged material from the bottom of the Markermeer. Markermeer has been pretty deteriorated, very poor ecosystem. And maybe many of you have already seen these islands or visited them. There have been a lot of news items around it. There's new ecosystem development. There are pioneer species. There are rave reviews from ecologists and filmmakers that all love the development of these Markerwadden. There will even be a very big conference in September this year organized by Rijkswaterstaat, an international conference on the Markerwadden. How do we score?
We are very positive on the nature-based solution. Only one person does not agree.
Okay, I would agree also here. Afsluitdijk was obviously not. Markerwadden, I would say, is one of the Dutch signature projects for building with nature right now. Next one, Marconi, that is Delfzijl. So we're now in the north of the Netherlands, near the port of Delfzijl. You see in the background, port activities, industry, chemical industry, energy plant, you see wind energy. And the project is about sludge management. So there is again, dredged material from the port that of course has regular maintenance that is reused here to create a 15-hectare salt marsh right in front of the dike. So this is a salty marshland environment. And the idea would be to create a bird breeding island. I'm not sure if that has already been that successful, but still under development. And we're watching how this is evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I Yeah, for now, everyone is convinced that it's a nature-based solution.
Okay, it's comparable, I would say, to Marco Waller. Now a bit more difficult, other side of the ocean, a project from our American colleagues in New York. You know, New York has been hit by Hurricane Sandy in 2012. This is a project to strengthen the coastline of Staten Island, one of the New York boroughs, as you probably know. Arcadis is developing here a flood protection, and we do that together with a world-famous landscape architect called Kate Orff. And Kate Orff has designed what she called a methodology called living breakwaters. It is sometimes also called living shorelines. I would say this is a bit the American counterpart for building with nature. It is focusing a lot on creating a breeding ground and species for fish, striped bass, and other types of fish to grow in this in this new type of breakwater. Although the breakwater also, as you can see, has quite some civil engineered elements in it as well. How do we score?
For now, the biggest part of people don't believe it's actually a nature-based solution.
Don't.
No.
Okay.
Now it's quite mixed. But maybe why is there so much confusion?
I think it's for good reasons. It is a pretty civil engineered solution that at the same time serves the ecosystem. So some good intentions, but you could say maybe over time it could evolve into a system with the use of more natural materials and still have the same impact. Next example. We speed up because we're now a little bit warm. So quick with your answers. We have many more examples. Wuhan. Very famous project called Sponge City. Well, we all knew Wuhan very well within Arcadis for many, many years with our colleagues from Wuhan. Long before any one of you knew the city of Wuhan, that became unfortunately so famous because of the COVID crisis from the last couple of years. Before that, Wuhan was famous because of its Sponge City project. Sponge City is a plan from the Chinese government to let's say, restore a proper and sound water management system in these cities that have been growing so fast that they cannot cope with the water. They either have flooding when it is raining, and they have immediate water shortages when there is a drought. And in between, they also have severe problems with water quality because of lack of proper sewage systems and water treatment. So the Sponge City idea, and the graphic gives a good example, would be we build cities that act like a sponge. They hold the water during rain time, reduce peak flow, and also reduce polluted sewage overflow, and at the same time store water for the dry season. Still has to be worked out how nature-based these solutions will be or how civil engineered. The image looks quite nature-based with this beautiful Wuhan Central Park, but the reality in China will be in these 12 million plus inhabitant cities. It will be hard to find space for nature-based solutions.
And almost everyone thinks it's a nature-based solution.
That's amazing. Let's hope that the Chinese take this as a positive encouragement. We still have to see if it really will work, that nature-based. It is a question for the future. Next, we now go to a couple of coastal projects that Arcadis has been working on. As you know, the so-called weak links. The Netherlands realized that even the Dutch with sea level rise would have to deal with improving their coastal flood protection. One of the places where that had to be done was in Scheveningen. And there was a beautiful new design here, and we are happy and proud to have one of the inventors of this system, Rob Stein, in the call here. He came up with the idea to hide a dike underneath another structure. And we will see a couple of examples following Scheveningen, Katwijk, and others, where the dike, this hidden dike, is combined with another structure superposing it. In this case, it is the boulevard of Scheveningen that really needed an upgrade. Boulevard was a little bit getting sleazy, not the greatest tourist place anymore that it was before. Not very attractive, and the idea was to have a new dike combined with a beautiful boulevard, a meandering boulevard designed by famous Spanish architect Morales. And he added a lot of cultural elements in this boulevard, like the statues that you see here. So there's art elements, designed furniture, different steps that accentuate the natural landscape behind it. So this is definitely much more than just a dike. So I wonder how this scores.
We have a lot of sad reactions. So it's not a nature-based solution, according our guests.
Well, I can agree. Let's not forget that the social and
But
the economic.
Rob does not agree.
Okay, Rob does not agree, yeah, because he's the man who invented this. Let's not forget that the addressing cultural and social elements, economic elements, these are very good elements that can contribute to a good nature-based solution. They're all present here, but for the rest, this is a pretty much civil engineered environment. So I can understand, and we'll see comparable examples now that are more nature-based, I think.
They ask if we want to hear Rob's argumentation, why he believes it's a nature-based solution, actually.
Maybe let's save that for the, otherwise we a little bit.
Maybe in the end.
We save that, Rob, we save your comments for the Q&A, and now move on to others, because Rob will have a different opinion about others maybe as well. Katwijk, already mentioned, not so far away from Scheveningen, but a complete different concept. Here, the dike was hidden under a dune. And you see here this beautiful dune that has been very well restored, beautiful nature ecosystem created here, highly appreciated by tourists and residents because of its recreational values. And in addition to that, something really amazing, and I can tell you, this story I tell all over the world and everybody loves it. There is a garage, a parking garage hidden under the dune right next to the dike, making this one of the most multifunctional structures that we have in the Netherlands. Basically combining urban functionality, infrastructure, nature-based solutions, ecosystems improvement, all at the same time. Very beneficial because you basically take out the traffic that usually would get stuck on the boulevard here on sunny days and put them all in the parking garage below. A very elegant parking garage, well designed. I have to admit, was not designed. Arcadis did the whole project, but the design of the parking garage was by Royal Haskoning, and they won multiple awards for this parking garage. How do we score?
Actually, it's still mixed. We have quite some positive reactions, but also some people believe it's not nature-based.
Okay, well, you could basically see this is a 50-50 solution. This is a multifunctional structure, and the top right picture clearly indicates that this is not all nature, of course. You see the concrete pouring out there. So this is a combined, a hybrid solution, as Rob would call it, combining the soft sandy side with a more hard civil engineered structure. And a bit more north, the next coastal resilience project, coastal link, called the Holsbossen and Pettermer Zeewering. And here you see bottom right what it used to look like. All concrete and tarmac and asphalt and basalt blocks. And the picture in the background shows you what it now looks like. This is completely made out of sand now. And it's not just a bold sandy, a pile of sand. This is very smartly designed. It has created new nature with inland lakes, with creeks, with really a new nature reserve that is developing here right now. So I would be very disappointed if this would not score high as nature-based.
It is scoring very high.
Okay, that's what I would expect. Next, this is a difficult one. 7 Square Endeavour. 7 Square Endeavour is a new initiative that starts from Rotterdam, and right at the Theater Concerthal de Doelen is the center of Rotterdam. And the idea is that we will multiply this into 7 squares in cities worldwide. And the idea is to make these squares completely carbon and climate neutral. So the sustainability impact is the let's say the driver for this project. And one of the elements is that the roofs around the square are going to be developed as green roofs, as you see here in this artist impression. But I guess many of you know that Rotterdam already has a lot of green roofs under development. You can visit them. There are organic farms, restaurants up there. There are nature reserves. There are places for playgrounds. So the green roof is definitely booming in Rotterdam. This is going to be one of them. And the idea is that there will also be a rainwater storage structure, both on the roof as well as on the square itself. So how would this score?
It is very mixed.
Mixed?
Yes, so quite some people don't really think it's a nature-based solution, but other people do.
Okay, I see we're still relatively low in score, so please keep on pushing the button, keep on scoring.
Now more nature-based solutions, actually.
Okay, so we go
5, 6.
Okay, so we go up. Well, I would say in general, sustainability projects, green roofs, etc. In the urban environment, it is very hard to be 100% nature-based. So maybe sometimes you need a bit of a compromise there to get something done in the end, because it is more important that these projects in the end are realized and then that they score 100% on nature-based. So sometimes you have to a little bit compromise here and score a little lower than 100%. Now, another compromise here, an Arcadis project in Sao Paulo. Arcadis has also, we have a lot of Brazilian colleagues working in Sao Paulo and other cities. One of their biggest clients is called SABESP. SABESP is the Water Management Authority for Sao Paulo. You can imagine what a challenge. The whole urban environment is about 30 million people desperately needing clean drinking water in the dry, hot summers, but also with a lot of sewage treatment of water from this gigantic urban area that has to be cleaned. Sabesp is working on that. One of the canals that play an important role in that process is called Rio Tietê. And this has been a concrete canal for decades. And we are now trying slightly, bit by bit, to turn it into a bit more of a nature-based type of what we will call a linear park. So a very thin and long park along the River Tietê to allow a little bit space for the people that live in this area to have some more space for leisure and biking and other topics. So this is in a very challenging urban environment, I can tell you. How do we score here?
Positively, but still quite some people need to answer. So I think they needed a little bit time to reflect on this one. But mostly nature-based solution.
Okay, I would say let's add another element here for the discussion. We recently had a discussion together with the consulate and in Sao Paulo and with the Rijkswaterstaat and the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs with Brazilian counterparts about Rio Tietê and other projects, comparing it to the Dutch Room for the River projects. And now the interesting thing is that if you make that comparison, you should realize that the ecosystems values is only one component. Room for the River concepts in a dense urban environment, in particular in the third world, in the mega cities of the third world, and they add other challenges here. For instance, who are the people that live close to the waterfront? And where do they go when we want to give more room to the river? This is a very difficult topic to address. And that was also a topic our colleagues had to deal with here. So the social component is quite a challenging one. And you could even wonder if a room for the river concept, which is a nature-based concept, is from a community and inclusivity perspective always the best solution. You might wonder. How's the score? Is changing?
No.
Okay.
It's still quite nature-based.
We move on. Other side of the world. This is a roller coaster, and we're making a lot of air miles here. Singapore. A project that Arcadis is very proud of, Singapore Gardens by the Bay. Maybe some of you have visited it. It was opened by the Dutch king, the Dutch queen, the former queen, Beatrix. It was her last state visit. And on her last state visit, she opened this park because there is also a Dutch component in it by the work that Arcadis did here. What is this? This is basically a fabulous, beautiful kind of a fairy tale kind of park landscape, beautifully enlightened in the night. Great view. The picture here is taken from the top of the Marina Bay Sands, skyscrapers right next to it. On reclaimed land. This is reclaimed land. In the background, you also see even a barrier that keeps the fresh water from Singapore on the inside. Very educational. Still under development. There's still some concrete and steel to be seen. It's not all that green yet, but it's developing into a very, very attractive tourist destination. I think it's even tourist destination #1 in Singapore right now.
Well, and for now, all pretty set reactions. So no one really thinks it's a nature-based solution.
Okay, it is honoring nature. This is to show nature to the public. You could wonder how much nature-based it was in its design in the end. So maybe there's also still room for improvement here. Comparable, nearby Hong Kong, West Kowloon. Kowloon, as you may know, is the mainland part of Hong Kong, which is mostly an island. On the Kowloon side, in this extremely dense urban environment, just look at the background there. Arcadis helped to develop a new resilient waterfront park with very green recreational facilities. Kowloon is very densely populated, so there was desperate need for more room to walk and to leisure. This was done in this very green design, as you see here, but also very architectural design with these meandering staircases and walls. I can tell you, looking at the picture here, this is a quiet day for Hong Kong standards. So this is really, really very popular. How popular do we score here on nature-based?
Not popular at all.
Not popular at all? Well,
but are they right or not?
I know that the waterfront that has been developed here right now is completely made out of concrete and prefab elements, and the natural elements that you here see is basically gardening. And we all love a good garden, but you can wonder if gardening in a civil engineered environment like here, if you would call that a multifunctional structure, or whether you could just call that a little green addition to a not so nature-based solution. So I have to agree with the most of you. Another one, I don't know if you know this one. This is in Utrecht and under construction. You can soon watch it. Marieke is going to watch it next weekend, I think. Wonderwoods in Utrecht, a new building, and the developer wanted us to come up with a complete sustainable building at all levels when it comes to energy, circular waste, water, cleaning the air, 100% green facades, shared mobility concept, only electrical vehicles allowed, etc., etc. And in addition to that sustainability, a very, very, very green appearance. Not only a green roof and green gardens around it, but also the facades will be completely green. Still pretty new for Holland. I've seen comparable examples in Italy, Milan, in the US. There's a couple of examples. Yeah, how green can we make our buildings, and how do we value that as a nature-based solution?
According to our guests, we value it as something which is nature-based.
Okay, good to know. Next, classic one, well known by the Wageningers, I guess, as well. How do you do on that? Room for the river. The Room for the River concept in practice, many dozens of projects, hundreds of projects, as you know, all completed. This is the one called Over Diepse Bolder. Arcadis has been involved very much here in helping to find a solution for 14 farmers that lived in this polder, to restore this polder as a water retention area, what it also has been for a very long time, by lowering the dike and putting the bigger dike back to the side. These 14 farmers were either given the opportunity to sell their farm and leave and go to another place, or to stay. About half of them did that and stayed on a very Dutch structure called a terp, a mold, a hill. They got a new farm with their stables for their cattle and for all their equipment, a farm right connected to the dike. So even when the polder is flooded, they can drive in and out on their tractors. Very convenient in these times. And just every now and then the polder will be flooded, and for the rest of the time the farmers can use it as their green farmland. So sounds very much like a win-win situation. But how do we score here on nature?
Very nature-based solution. So for now, everyone thinks it's nature-based.
Okay, but I see we only have 3 thumbs up, so we need.
Also, some people are actually writing in the chat because they have some issues.
Well, I agree with you guys when you say that green means agriculture. This is really mostly benefiting the agricultural sector. I would say there would be more possibilities here for adding a more of an ecosystems value component to it. But it worked out as a very good solution here for the farmers, at least. Next example, a bit downstream, is the Noordwaard. Noordwaard is a kind of a blue-green bypass that has been created here, connecting from one river to the other to lower water tables during high, let's say, design floods. Basically depoldering of a 2,000 large area, turning it into a naturally formed floodplain with a green bypass. There are some civil engineered structures here. There are some levees, there are bridges and pumps. But still, overall, I would say in hectares expressed, mostly a benefit here for nature. How do we score here?
They agree with you, mostly nature-based solution.
Okay. And another one called the Maaswerken. You see here in this little graphic, not everybody knows that, but the Maaswerken is like the southern branch of the Room for the River projects. All these red dots are Maaswerken projects. A bit different organizational structure, but basically comparable to the Room for the River program. And as you all know, considered pretty successful after last year floods in Limburg and in Belgium and in Germany, with devastating impact in our neighbor countries, with substantial negative impact in the Netherlands, in the tributary to the Meuse, in the city of Valkenburg. But along the Meuse itself, where a historic flood passed by, highest discharge ever on the Meuse, it proved that the Maaswerken concept worked pretty good. And there were some small flaws here and there. The Dutch may work on improving their overall resilience. Maybe you remember that there were, although the Maaswerken were successful, they still had to evacuate thousands of people. And they even had to evacuate hospitals and elderly homes, and electricity failure, and there was public transportation down. So room for improvement on the resilience side. But this Maaswerken concept, which is basically a digging, a dredging of the valuable resources here, sand and gravel, by contractors, and creating this very natural, widened Meuse valley landscape, I would say I would consider this a high score on nature-based solution.
And also our guests consider it a nature-based solution.
We all agree. A building again, Triodosbank, right next to the Driebergen railway station, which is also very green. Interesting, different from the Wonderwoods that you saw before. Completely sustainable, even up to the use of materials, woods, etc. But in addition to that, also a fascinating integration into a beautiful landscape. This is not like Wonderwoods in the middle of Utrecht. This is in a former, a landschapspark, a natural environment that has been here for a very, very long time. And an attempt was made here not only to make the buildings sustainable and green, but also to integrate them and let them interact with the landscape here. And this is the beautiful result that you see here.
Indeed, very beautiful and also very nature-based, as most of people say.
I agree. Another beautiful green area here. This is the Lake Borgne. This is my personal most important achievement in my 37-year career with in water management and 30 years with Arcadis. The hurricane protection system for New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina hit the city and almost destroyed the city, killed thousands of people. The Army Corps of Engineers had to rebuild within a very, very short time frame a flood protection system because the city was simply not protected. They did not have a lot of choice here. There was not a lot of ecosystems considerations, no discussions with communities. The Army Corps basically did not accept any opposition here, but built as fast as they could a ring of concrete and steel around the city. I'm pretty sure you will score low here on nature-based solutions, but let's give them one credit. In the same summer where Europe was hit by flooding, also the US was hit by a very big hurricane called Ida. Ida had a devastating impact on the East Coast, killing a lot of people in New York, for instance. But when it hit New Orleans with a force comparable to Hurricane Katrina, it was not able to destroy anything in the city. So there was some wind damage and some water, little rain damage, but there was no devastating flooding. So although I guess you will score low on nature-based solutions,
Yeah,
let's not forget that the system saved the city.
exactly.
And I think we're almost at our last
Yes,
example,
exactly.
good on time. East side coastal resilience. I just mentioned already Hurricane Sandy hitting east coast of New York. This is a project under development, well, under construction right now at the east side, near the lower east side, near the Brooklyn Bridge. Arcadis has designed here a multifunctional solution to deal with this complex situation here, a very challenging urban environment, lot of infrastructure. Maybe some of you know, you have the FDR, the highway running there, basically sealing off the waterfront from the nearby Lower East Side communities. A very green dream here, as this artist impression shows. The work is under construction right now. You may wonder when you look at this image, how nature-based this flood wall is that is built here. So there might be a gap here between dream and reality in realizing this project. So how do we score on this one?
Some indecision, actually. It's 50-50 for now.
I would say, yeah, give them a chance. The image is a little bit making it worse. This is the worst picture I could show you to give you a bit of a feel here. There's some good elements in it, but it is definitely not just a nature-based solution. I think that is it's pretty obvious here.
Yes. And now we will go back to the Mentimeter. So let me.
Yeah.
I will share my screen in a second. No, let's make screen. Sorry.
So these were all the examples, and thank you for your contribution. I think we all were more or less on the same page here, and maybe good to realize that when we do an exercise like this, you learn that nature-based solutions is not something by definition that you can score a yes or a no. This is also about your opinion. This is about how things evolve. Sometimes people are getting more concerned about carbon zero or about community involvement, or sometimes you're a bit more realistic in an urban environment. So this is also about how you opinionate here. And that was what the exercise was about. And now we go back to the Mentimeter.
But I don't see it on your screen, so it's actually for some reason not working. While it worked for some. If I put on my screen, but that's not my screen. It's very.
Marike, we just saw it right now before.
Once again.
I'm doing that, but I'm not seeing it here.
I see it.
Can
Marike.
someone tell me if they see the Mentimeter?
Yes, we do.
No?
Oh,
Yes.
actually, yes, but
Ah.
I don't see it here.
Okay, so there's no problem. Then
Okay, okay.
It's not on my screen, but it's on your screen.
Okay, perfect. There were some technical difficulties.
No, we are, but I was in my PowerPoint, of course. Yeah.
Oh, I was okay.
Yeah.
So which types of nature-based solutions are the best in your opinion? So we have already quite some answers. Also, it would be nice if everyone keeps it short, just 1 word or 2 words answers. Examples are sand, trees, green rooftop, a vertical green wall. But I don't really see a winner for now, or something that is really standing out.
So if you see something already typed in by somebody else that you really like, just double that so we can have a score on it. So now we see a wide variety.
Actually, I see that biodiversity, inclusive, and pragmatic and holistic are standing out. And they are all pretty interesting. Definitely also the holistic approach. But I think that everyone answered. So I will go back to the presentation now and show how last year practitioners scored with the same question. People, wait, let me share my screen again.
Yeah, coming up.
Okay.
So this was the. You had it?
Yeah, I had it, but when I enlarge it, it's. Well.
Okay, leave it like this maybe. I hope you can read it. So this was again the score at the Arcadis Global Community of Practice for Resilient Cities. And I think you see quite some comparable words. There was a bit more wetlands as a topic standing out. Green roofs, green infrastructure, living shorelines, as mentioned. Dunes was mentioned a couple of times. So it's interesting. The one big difference that stands out for me is the word pragmatic. I think you chose that word now, several of you, because I emphasized a couple of times the need sometimes for some pragmatism if you want to realize something in the urban environment. And I cannot recall that we did that when we had the community of practice workshop. So that's the one word that makes the big difference here. I think, yeah, good enough. We will share those results with the leadership, so you can have a look at the word cloud later. I think we have just a few more minutes left for some discussion. So let's move over to the discussion and some Q&A. And I would say let's start with Rob Stein.
Yes.
If Rob is still on the call, and Rob, tell us why you think that Scheveningen Boulevard is a nature-based solution.
Yeah, that is my privilege to do.
Rob, you're on mute.
I'm not on mute, so I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, good. Well, life is not binary.
Cannot hear you, Rob.
You cannot hear me? Can nobody hear me?
Oh, I can.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
You can hear me.
Okay,
Piet, well, maybe that's a communication then issue. But I said that life is not binary. And what Piet already mentioned, that if you are in a dense built environment, then the application of 100% nature-based solutions is just more difficult. And the denser it is built, the less nature-based elements you will find in the solution. And that is exactly the same with the Dutch coastal protection schemes. If we start with the Hague Scheveningen example, and combined with concrete, so it's a hybrid solution, but there are nature-based aspects in it, then most of the work is indeed a bit civil engineered, but there is still sand. And that's because we are in an entirely dense urban Noordwijk in the middle, where the density of so you can see that there is already more of a mix between sand and civil engineering structures. And when we move all the way up to the Hondsbosse Pettemerzeewering, where the urban environment is absolutely almost absent, then you can see that it is entirely sand. But in essence, all 4 examples are hybrid solutions with some nature-based elements, and that is what I wanted to mention.
Okay, great addition, I think, and very instructive for everybody. Who has a burning question? Raise your hand in the app. Click on more, and you can raise your reactions.
Yes.
Who has a burning question or a remark? Or are there any questions in the chat that you see, Marike, that you would like to mention?
I saw, but it was not really a question. Or Tabea is a question actually, but before David mentioned that in the first Room for the River project, there were quite some social elements that were very well included. So I thought it was a nice addition.
Yeah, I would say in this new modern times that we live in, we should expect our best possible nature-based solutions, that they are multifunctional and hybrid, that they are integrated if needed into that urban fabric, as Rob described. Sometimes it's more dense and sometimes it's less. We also want it to be economically feasible. So if possible, include benefits like a parking garage or other benefits for local communities. You didn't see the example of the mangroves that many of you are familiar with in Indonesia. That's a different type of ecosystems and economic benefits, because local communities can benefit there from the improved opportunity for fish breeding and for maybe even ecotourism or other types of creating small income. We also want these things to be social. The example of a Room for the River in Sao Paulo as an example, but also other examples. If we do not protect the community, but also serve the community, why are we doing it? We are doing it in the end for the people that live nearby. And sometimes it's protection, but people don't always want protection at all price. The community, nearby people may have different opinions, so we may start learning to listen earlier to the needs of local communities for these types of solutions. We also want them to be sustainable. It doesn't make any sense, I would say, that we develop very strong flood protection if we need a lot of concrete for that at the same time destroys our climate, as we know, because it has a very big carbon footprint. So we also need to find flood protection measures and resilience measures that are as nature-based as possible to lower our carbon footprint. And we saw the example of the Afsluitdijk, where the carbon footprint was only reduced by reducing the amount of concrete that was used and by reusing concrete, but you could of course lower that footprint much more. So I would say good nature-based solutions have all these elements in it. And I hope that is also shown here by the examples that we presented to you. Anybody
Tabea?
for a final question or remark? Tabea?
Yes, I actually had a question for Rob Stein, because at least in the way that I personally see nature-based solutions, I would consider things with sand to be a nature-based solution. But I was wondering, because we're running into a lot of resource scarcity, especially also with sand, I was wondering whether we should maybe start reconsidering whether nature-based solutions that include, for example, sand as one of the only nature-based elements, should we really keep considering them nature-based solutions when they're draining our resources?
Very good question. Rob?
Yeah, excellent question. It depends on where we are. So I agree with you that in areas where there's not much sand, and if you extract that sand, perhaps you even destroy habitats, then that is definitely not a good solution. But the North Sea, we have billions of cubic meters of sand available. So at some places there are abundant amounts of sand for these type of solutions. And let's face it, I mean, sand is the natural response to wave attack, at least if you have a sandy coast. So it is definitely using the forces of nature. CEST can reshape itself in the way that it can most efficiently counter force the attack from the oceans. So I do think that sand is definitely a very good source for nature-based solutions, but not everywhere. Definitely not.
Thank you.
Any more hands?
I see one hand raised. But I
Samikshia. I see a guest. Samikshia, you have a question or a remark?
Yeah, I have a question. Well, first of all, thank you for a really wonderful session. I learned a lot. And my question is regarding environmental benefits from nature-based solutions. I know we didn't particularly talk about that part, but I just wanted to know your opinion. Like, how would you define environmental benefits from nature-based solutions? And do all nature-based solutions produce environmental benefit or not?
Well, it's a rhetoric question almost, I would say. This is obvious that it varies a lot. I think we are still in the learning phases of precisely assessing the ecosystem's impact of our nature-based solutions. And there's quite some science going on now. There's been quite some recent publications on that topic. It will be very interesting to follow that process. And for instance, attempts to try to monetize the benefits, where you say, okay, how do we compare different benefits, social, economic, ecosystems benefits, health and safety benefits, security benefits? How do we value any of those benefits? And how can we compare them to each other? By monetizing, or maybe by doing that in another way. We ourselves have a tool under development for that. We call it BART, the Bankability Resilience Tool, where we try to make that comparison. I think this is very important because the decision makers that invest in resilience projects are often federal governments, like Rijkswaterstaat in the Netherlands, Environment Agency in the UK, Army Corps in the US. And they always take their decision based on a cost-benefit analysis. And although they have very often very good intentions in including nature-based solutions into their solutions, they do not score high yet in these cost-benefit analysis. So very often a concrete flood wall, particularly in the US, a concrete flood wall often scores the highest in the cost-benefit analysis, which is very unfortunate, of course, because we see that there are a lot of ecosystems and social benefits not valued enough. So one of the ongoing discourses right now is that we should find ways to more precisely value the benefits and monetize those benefits to make them more concrete.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're I think
over
we're
time.
We're over time, so I'm going to give it back to Miriam Troost and the work people to close it off for us.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I think we all learned a lot. I really enjoyed the workshop myself. It's when we started with the challenge, I think for everybody, nature-based solutions is quite a new topic, and especially also for the students. And also we saw that we had like 45 teams signing in, and we had a jury, and we were very critical, but it was always very difficult. Oh, is this really a nature-based solution or not? But I'm happy we have these kind of conversations so everybody can reshape and think about it. So thanks so much. And thank you for the teams. I saw also some jury members here. Thank you, Piet and Marieke. And also, I hope all the students listen in the beginning when you said that every half a year you have like a right hand, and that will learn. I think you will learn a lot, Marieke and Tabea, and most definitely. And so, yeah, let's keep in touch, and have a good summer, everybody, if it's holiday time in your countries and in your continents. And well, we'll meet later. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I will also share the Mentimeter
Bye.
results in the chat for anyone listening to.
Yeah. And the PowerPoint. Well, I will email
Yes.
you.
Yes. Great.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.